Suns fans, you know what time it is in the PHX.
Empire of the Suns.
Phoenix Suns.
Empire of the Suns.
The Empire of the Suns podcast is brought to you by Sonic. Drive to your nearest Sonic location and don't forget to order your half-price drink or slush anytime in the Sonic app.
Hello there, and welcome to the Empire of the Suns podcast. My name is Kellen Olson, looking around for where I put my water, joined as always by Kevin Zimmerman. Hey, Kevin, talk for a couple seconds so I find my water.
I wish you luck in that in Denver.
Found it.
We are, what? Are we 4 games in?
Four games in?
Math? I can't even count to 4, apparently. We're 4 games in, and... Okay, so my big takeaway so far, without getting ahead of ourselves, is we're at least 2 games. I had to have to go back first 2 of the Suns talking about how they're having fun in post-game interviews. This is over the TVs. They're playing competent basketball where I don't want to gouge my eyes out. That's good. And generally, they respond to bad patches with inspired play. These are very vague general things. We can start in getting into the nitty-gritty, but I think those are most important considering what the season we're coming off of. Do you agree with these assessments, sir?
The vibes were horrendous last year, yes.
Yeah.
They were real bad. So when the vibes appear to be at least solid, let alone good, that is a big improvement and is going to allow this team to do a lot of what it wants to do a whole lot easier. And you look at the results that they've had, I think it's been a pretty scattered 4 games in terms of quality of play, I'll put it as. But we've just seen enough positives over these 4 games to be, I don't know, optimistic maybe is the right word. I don't know exactly how to put it, but the Lakers game was ugly. I thought the Clippers game, even if they won, it was pretty ugly. And then I thought that the Dallas game was, as Devin Booker put it, closer to a complete game. Mm-hmm. It wasn't necessarily that close, but it was closer. And then this was their best defensive game, the win over the Lakers last night in Phoenix. But they had a horrendous 7 minutes to start the game. The Lakers were really, really, really good in the first 7 minutes, but the Suns were also very bad. They weren't able to adjust on the fly. They looked like they were getting ambushed basically by the transition play. And it's like, okay, they're running, match up, run back. Don't get cross-matched every possession. So all of that is put together to what you said, which is just seems like they're more on the same page. It seems like the cohesion and all that kind of stuff is in a better place. They've had a lot of guys step up to make that happen, a lot. I think that we're 1 or 2 podcasts away from talking about, is this the deepest Suns team since blank?
Yeah.
Because Royce has been phenomenal. I will make the case right now that Brad has been their best player so far, just because the all-around game that he has been playing, this is the best defense we've seen him play so far in Phoenix, not to ignore the defense he played in the second half of last year, but he's even playing it to another level right now. The rim pressure, shooting threes, considering how little he has the ball right now for him to be getting up the threes that he is good. I know he didn't make a few that would have been backbreakers for the Lakers in that game last night, but he's been great. Mason Plumlee had his best game as a Sun last night as well. And then there's Ryan Dunn. It's crazy how, I think that's kind of where I want to start, is it's crazy that their roster is not, it's not top heavy, but it's their top 6-7 guys can be so good that one of them not being involved at all is still okay. Yeah. Grayson did not play against the Mavs. Brad did not play against the Mavs, and I didn't really notice that much while the game was going on. And then same thing, Grayson barely played against the Lakers, and I didn't really notice. And Grayson, as I've said for months now, was their most consistent player last year. So it's just a really deep team. And you think about it, they're 3-1, and Book has been below average to his standard. Kevin has been about Kevin, maybe a little worse because he's Kevin Durant. You expect the best from him every single night. So with all of that together, Nurk has been really bad, and they're 3-1, and it seems like they're able to balance all of that pretty well because, again, they just have a lot of help right now. And Bud is pushing a lot of good buttons, and it's just a lot of good signs about like the total team that they're going to be.
Yeah. And I think, not that it's super important context, but I think Clippers, also it's the opener, Clippers do have some defensive juice to them. They're going to be annoying to some teams, but they should not offensively keep track with most good teams. The Lakers, I believe, from what we've seen, again, early, is they've actually, like, speaking of teams getting the most out of individuals, I said it, AD looks really awesome. He won Player of the Week, and then that was before last night. Rui Hachimura looks like he has taken his game to another level. Austin Reeves was honestly just like arguably outplaying Book in the first matchup.
But what changed, Kevin?
The head coach, Kevin.
Oh.
The head coach who is empowering his individual players to play better collectively as a team, which I think Bud is doing too. So I think the competition has been good. So like this record, scraping out wins, however they're coming about.
Clippers might be good.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Like Dallas was I think Dallas looked like the worst opponent. They've only faced 3 opponents, but like Dallas is the worst opponent. They didn't look good.
They look like world beaters against the Spurs, and then it was a completely different team when they came to Phoenix. It was weird.
Yeah.
As the early season goes.
Yeah. And early days, as they say on Love Island, the UK version. But anyway.
Who could forget?
Yeah,
who could forget the mantra?
Yeah. But yeah, I think if we're taking overarching things, Bud came in, well, Bud left the Milwaukee Bucks as this guy, and we kind of made the comparison. He's like Monty Williams. He has his things he gets stuck into. He has not been stuck into rotations. I mean, generally with the stars, yes. He has not been afraid to be like, oh, you're not playing because I know this is a bad matchup for you. He has, in games, obviously closing without a point guard, deciding, Nurk, nope, you're not having a night. Plumlee's in. Oso didn't even play because I think they knew AD is a bad matchup for him. Even throwing Colin Gillespie out there one game when you're benched just to keep the depth up there. And he nailed the 3, I think.
29 lineups in the first game. Yeah.
Yeah. Just what are your thoughts on just how he's managing the roster and getting everyone involved, but also like he is already reacting to like, nope, that's not going to work. I'm not even giving another day or another
possession
or another quarter, whatever.
It's been impressive to see what he's been able to change. I think I'll put it that way. It's funny how, I'm trying to think of the nice way to say this. There's actual basketball things happening now, so people have stopped talking about how many threes they're taking the last couple of games, and it's like, meanwhile, they're taking a lot of threes still.
Yeah.
And it's like there's just like Ryan Dunn and Royce O'Neal and like LeBron's having a terrible game and like all this stuff, and it's like no one's noticing. Like they're taking 36 threes, isn't that great?
Yeah.
It's just like.
Well, we didn't. Yeah, we had to talk about something.
Yeah, right. It was. I don't know. It was just amazing how like that was such a huge narrative for this team, and like after the first game, we're like, 39 or whatever it was. It was at the OT game where it was 39. Yeah, it was 39. So they had 39 in the Dallas game as well, and 36 in this one. The rotation stuff is wild because you're just not used to seeing a collegiate style of substitution patterns in the NBA. And maybe this is something more common and I just haven't noticed it because it hasn't happened with the Suns coach before. But yeah, it's just straight up like, oh, this lineup isn't working for like a minute. And the age-old adage, I'll put it as, of the coach is waiting 4 possessions too long to call a timeout. It's like if I were to make a list, you and I were to spend an episode coming up with like, what are the 3 things that fans complain about the most? It's probably substitutions. Why aren't you calling a timeout yet? And then like insert this player who's the worst. And like that's Nurkic this year. It was DeAndre before. It was other people before that, and it goes on and on. His thing with the substitutions, at least early in the point this year, has been that. It's been interesting someone asked him pregame, and it was just like he said it's situation to situation for him with playing minutes and giving guys heavy minutes. But I'm going to look at this after we're done here. Kevin has played, I think, like 35 plus in every game. I want to say off the top of my head. He played 38 last night. And in the overtime game, he played 44, so he'd played 39 up to overtime. And I'm guessing Giannis in his last year with Bud broke like 38 plus, like not too many times. And Kevin is well on pace to go above that. Now, was that just a Giannis and Middleton specific thing? I don't think so, but it's interesting that these guys are getting more run. And obviously the thing last night was to talk about Nurk while we're talking about this. I referenced Bender groans in the recap last night.
Bender groans, yeah.
For longtime listeners, you'll be familiar with the term because it's really weird, and I don't think you would forget it once you heard it, and the people hearing it right now are like, that's kind of weird to say. Basically, Dragan Bender over his like first year and a half was like growing pains. Like it was just going through growing pains, and then eventually his mistakes started to multiply really fast over the course of games, and eventually like he would foul a three-point shooter, mishandle a rebound, turn it over on a pass in the span of like 90 seconds, and then a minute later would have an open three, and you could feel the crowd like, please, Dragan, like just, and then he would miss it, and they would go, oh, like just something like that to that effect. And that's what I call them. And they started coming up for DeAndre towards like the end of his Suns tenure. It really took a while. Like there were games where it kind of happened, don't get me wrong, but it was like a really, like you could sense the online outrage. You could sense the frustration in the building at the same time.
Like as the shot's going up, if he misses this, there's like, it's flooded. I
know there are a lot of people listening who have never actually been to an NBA game before, but they actively participate on Twitter all the time. Mm-hmm. Like the match usually isn't really there. Like the excitement, sure, but the down points at like when crowds boo, it's like we're not Philly here in Phoenix, so we don't boo all the time. But after it was Reeves like stripped him in the post, that was like his last play basically. Like it was like you could hear like certain sections of the crowd especially were like upset. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, we're here. That's the thing with him is that I think last year, and I don't want to phrase it as a Nurk defender, but I've just felt the need to express that he's been pretty solid for this team. And yes, he is a frustrating player. I really understand that. The difference between last year and what is happening right now is that, again, they're compounding. It's like the snowball running down the hill. Mm-hmm. Like it's just adding up in these 2 games out of 4, to be clear, 2 games out of 4. But like a miss at the rim, a turnover there, a offensive foul for a moving screen, mishandling a rebound, like those kinds of things are just really adding up for him over time. So with all that said, Bud would have been in a position most coaches were in where they would have just let him play through it and see what happens. But Mason Plumlee was playing pretty well. And I don't know how much of that versus, like, I don't know if Mason was playing just fine like he has been for the whole season so far, or for the first 3 games, if Plumlee would have come in still. But he had Plumlee come in. He went small for a bit. The Dunn O'Neal minutes were going so well that even when AD checked back in, he yanked Plumlee at the scorer's table and said, let's let him run for a couple of possessions, and then he brought Plumlee back in. Like, that's the type of stuff that the previous 2 coaches I don't think really would have ever done. And I think that's a good point by you, because it's like, okay, is this a Monty-esque development? Because I think something people forget about Monty is that he had a lot of problems in New Orleans, and he corrected a lot of those in Phoenix. Like he still had his faults as a head coach here, don't get me wrong, but he got much better compared to what everyone told us about how the stint went in New Orleans. And Budenholzer, again, like this is another chance. That's the thing, is like Monty was super open about how much he learned and was able to like self-reflect when he was not a head coach anymore. And Bud might have had that year or 2, or year, I should say, that to do that. But man, if this like is a full circle thing for him where he can adjust more in the playoffs. We'll see. I will say, and this is like, don't read anything into this, please, when I say this. I'm just trying to keep us up to date with all of the information. I think Book and Kevin both, Kevin for sure, I can't remember if Book did it or not, but I'm pretty sure. Both of them reference like on defense how they would like to see them be a little bit more creative and like loose with the stuff that they're doing. But the obvious like thought there is like they're just keeping things very structured and simple right now with their defense before they expand. Whereas I think Vogel was like, let's do all the wacky stuff right away and do everything. And Bud is like, no, we're going to get good at like ABC before we get to XYZ, basically.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And also, I just watching like Redick versus Bud and even Ty Lue in the first game, I think the game has changed that much in the past few years where just the offensive intricacies and how teams space, and I think it's a reason why teams would go on like a 20-0 run and then blow a lead and lose, which isn't specific to the Suns in the past few years, is because these coaches are just making these little changes that really do impact the game so much. And I just think like maybe it's not even Bud evolution so much as Bud's like 2 years ago was with the times and he's just with the times again, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I think we'll see more once we get out of this stretch where they keep playing the same LA teams, like similar things with other coaches. I wanted to ask, I guess we should talk about Ryan Dunn.
Yeah, he is the hot topic right now.
He is the hot topic. I will say, before we move on to him, to your Bradley Beal point, he was the primary defender on LeBron to start these games. And they're switching a lot depending on the lineups and stuff. But
yeah, it was hard to like say who was guarding who, especially.
But
yeah.
Like with Beal, assertiveness, he's taking the shots that he's clearly just like, I'm shooting this, or I'm going to use this move into getting my shot off. Like he's very decisive, not overthinking right now, which is awesome to see. And then I did look up, he's top 20, but he's number 1 on the Suns as far as shots defended, to kind of illustrate like he is being asked to be that defensive ace in a lineup of just offensive guys, and holding up pretty well by all accounts. So I just wanted to point that out. But Dunn, thoughts, surprises?
Minute totals through 4 games, 9, 14, 21, and 15. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because I think the best thing to happen for him and the team is that when he is playing well, they haven't need more than what he has provided.
Yeah.
Because I think that if he is out there for 28, 32, 36 minutes because he's playing super well, that is when some of the shortcomings will come just because he's a rookie. It has nothing to do with him. It's just like he's a rookie, and that's where you'll start to see some of the mistakes. And that's why Bud said in training camp, like, you just don't see rookies that often come in and play for contending teams right away because of what they need. Like, I think Minnesota is a really good example right now where they're basically playing 8 guys because their roster is built in a way to be relying on Rob Dillingham for sure, and in a way Terrence Shannon Jr. as well, but they're not playing them right now because Finch probably just doesn't trust the rookies right now. But Dunn has played super well, and like I said, like Royce, Brad, and Durant, Booker, like these guys have all played relatively well or decent enough to where they haven't needed more out of him than what he's provided, so he's been able to just come in with these short bursts and really impact games. Like we spent all summer talking about how good of a defender he is, and you're seeing it. Like I sat here and said he's going to be one of the better perimeter defenders in the league right away, and we're seeing that already. It's just the offense, and he remains confident. He's remaining confident. The best thing I've seen so far in 4 games is he had a catch at the top of the key. I got to go watch it back to see like the context of it, because in the moment you can't really tell a ton with so much going on. But he drove to the rim, drove through, not through LeBron, but took the driving lane LeBron offered and finished at the rim, which is what he needs to do, because he, not to start off the conversation on him or just like so quickly get to a negative with him, but I've said this for a while. Like he loves his mid-range game more than anything in his offensive game. At least when you watch him play, that's what you think. And he just doesn't have good enough touch to be relying on it. He's such a great athlete. I think Book put it that way last night, where his NBA athleticism is top tier like right now, and he doesn't need to like add on weight like some rookies do. He doesn't need to like get in the strength and conditioning program like some rookies do. He's ready right now. So to see the confidence to just drive to the rim with something he doesn't necessarily do a ton, and then finish at the rim with LeBron on him, like it wasn't amazing defense by LeBron, but for him to do it was really impressive. And then of course, like the threes that he is taking, there was the one against Dallas where they were up 6, and he runs like sort of a ghost screen deal with Durant. Durant catches both guys, kicks it to Dunn. Dunn takes a dribble, confidently shoots, and hits the 3. He had the Euro step in transition last night, which had the whole bench going like, you can do that? Because he did this thing, and the whole bench was like, he's doing this.
Almost like a foot drag slow down before you make, yeah.
Yeah, he can play. I think that he can play. I just like I'm trying to be super nice here and just like temper expectations, because I hear people mentioning Mikal with him a lot, and it's like let's slow down. Mikal was is like a really, really, really good player, and if Dunn is just the defender that he is and is hitting open threes and making like little energy plays here and there, that is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And it's just like there are levels here, and like the comparisons, like just
are we Bruce Bowen? Are we Jared Vanderbilt? Like where are we in this range? Yeah. To me, but it's just like, can he do enough on the floor to warrant the defense staying on? And the overwhelming answer right now has just been like, yes. Yeah. He's learning the foul calling, and if he did play more minutes, he would probably not play that many more minutes because he's fouling a lot, which like this is like when DA was a rookie, I think, playing like Jokic, if you remember that first year. And then it was like, okay, let's see how he does second, third time, fourth time. And you could see like literal like steps being taken about defense against like one of the best offensive players at his position. So like when Dunn plays Luka again, the second time around against Braun, and we've already seen a little bit, like that's the stuff that I'm going to be super intrigued about, where he's like, oh, I know you're going to try to bait me coming across the screen and pull up, and I'm going to run into, like, I'm not going to do that anymore. Like little stuff like that will be fun to see. He only has 2 blocks, I believe, credited to him somehow. And like watching from TV, I'm like, there were some that are just, did he get a piece of that? Because he is making people just miss.
There were the back-to-back ones in LA against the Lakers on AD and LeBron.
Yeah. And my favorite Dunn play was, I think it was literally into the Euro step transition where LeBron basically called for a screen so he could get switched off of him. Like that happens on like every play, but okay, a little respect there. Braun actually drove, and Dunn came from weak. He might have been on the strong side, but basically from the corner, apparently did not block the shot, but he missed the layup with like 3 guys around him, and then Dunn got the transition layup. So that one was one where it's like he's still finding his way into plays even though when he's not the main defender. And I think that's the cool part about his game, where like that's different than say Mikal, is he does not have to be on the ball to mess up and junk up plays. So I think you went over that when we were talking draft stuff, like at Virginia, like weak side coverage, he's really good. He has more length in that regard, and is obviously a big dude. Bothering Luka's shots, bothering LeBron's shots, that stuff's good to see. But yeah, I think the extending his minutes, there's not really it's hard to see how you do that at this point, but it's also
there's not a reason to.
There's not a reason to, because
Royce has been unbelievable. Like there's no reason to.
I think I looked up this stat today. I think opponents are shooting like 31% on Royce. Like Dunn's is not that low. I saw the Suns tweet something about Braun and Luka and James, and I don't know where those numbers were from, but whatever.
It is.
I'm going
to say this right now, and it sounds like I'm being the Debbie Downer, but do not, the matchup stats, like, let's not do that.
Yeah.
They don't work.
Yeah.
They're bad. They are,
defensive tracking.
Just
stats,
think about when a player
giant
is
asterisk.
Think about when a player is guarding a player, and it's like, okay, if an offensive rebound gets caught and it's like an uncontested layup, the closest defender is technically the guy who guards him. It's like the guy contesting a wide open three, he has to recover to super late because it's not his fault, and that's his. It's wonky stuff, but he's been really great, and I think the other thing that impressed me the most, and I expected him to say this, but it was still cool to hear him say it, is that he found out he was starting. Beal, by the way, listed as questionable for a right shoulder soreness for game 2.
Oh, that was...
Misses game 3 because of a elbow.
Yeah.
And then during game 4, which was last night, he was flexing the hand a whole lot. And then had like a nasty fall on his like the left side of his like his left hip almost. So keeping an eye on Brad. Hope Brad can stay healthy, because we're just seeing the benefits of it for him and the whole team right now. Where was I going?
No idea. That's okay. Bench guys.
Royce is someone who I felt like it was really easy for fans, and like they do the same thing with Grayson, and that's totally okay. I get it. Because you're looking for solutions for the team. You're kind of like obsessed with that thought of like they need a center, they need this, they need that, they need a bigger wing, all that kind of stuff. Like Royce and Grayson are two really, really good basketball players, and Royce has just been nails. And he's like, to bring up the Mikal thing, it's like, yeah, like we watched Mikal on these terrible teams, and then once they started, even in the bubble year, you were like, oh, look, it's Mikal Bridges from Villanova. And then when the next year, it was like, oh, this is okay, finally. Like, yes. Winning players often need to be on winning teams for them to do the most. I think it was Budenholzer who said like the winning traits like are very like focused kind of things, and like Royce just does all those like excellently, and is just he's just been everywhere in these games. And this team really needs multiple guys like that, and they do have multiple guys like that. I put like Grayson had a big offensive rebound in that game last night too. Ryan, obviously, Dunn had a handful of those plays too. So it's just, like I said, like we're 3 or 4 weeks away from just like looking at this like 7, 8 guys and just, or 9 guys, and just being like, man, this is the deepest team they've had since blank. They gotta stay healthy for us to get there, but it's looking good.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out, I think after the first game, they really did kind of at least survive. They're surviving, because we talked about this team being small. If we had to pick a roster issue, it's they don't have like a mobile, high rebound guy center, but they're gang rebounding. Their ability to go small, like Dunn was part of it, but Royce O'Neal, how many times in late game situations across these first 4 games has he been like, oh, I'm stuck on the center. Yeah, you want to punish me with that? Good luck. Like, you're just going to junk up your offense doing that. Just that kind of little play that's not ever going to show up in the box score, to me, is why I guess it is the box score. So the plus minus is in the box score now in this world we live in. But it's not a stat. It's just like, oh, he just fronted Anthony Davis, and the Lakers spent like 3 seconds too long trying to set him up and target him. That's going to be key, because, again, like we have seen targeting on the Suns team of, okay, Tyus Jones, James Harden went at you. Tyus Jones, another guy who, like, hey, he's going to hold up, but he can't hold up every time against James Harden. So those little issues with the roster build are going to pop up, but the more Royce O'Neals who survive, the more Grayson Allens who survive, if Ryan Dunn can actually play the 5 for even 5 minutes a game here and there, that's going to change the whole outlook of an entire game sometimes.
I miss Tyus and Monte in the role player category too when I was naming the guys. Like Tyus has been pretty good. Monte has been pretty good too. Monte specifically is one worth briefly mentioning, just because he was coming off a weird year where it seemed like he was hurt and coming off an injury, and it was like, okay, is he kind of fading at this point in his career? Or was he just hurt? It looked like he was just hurt. He looks like Monte Morris again, which is a good basketball player. We should revisit before we go. I think like a lot of people clicking on this podcast are like expecting Nurkic trade ideas and like Mitchell Robinson and all this stuff. And I know you're not there. I'll just like say it for you. I know you're not there. I'm definitely not there. We'll revisit. Don't worry. Like in a couple of weeks, if this level of play from him continues, like we'll revisit. But we're just not going to go there 4 games in for a guy again who
I need to know who's on the block also if we're gonna trade a player who's
well,
playing
and
really
it's like
badly.
if you want to trade Grayson for a center, it's like so you just keep Nurk. Like who's getting Nurk now?
Yeah.
What he's just sitting there next year too? Like what are we doing?
I need to know who needs Nurk. Yeah.
We're a couple away, but I will say like warning for everyone. Do you know who's here Saturday?
I don't know that far ahead of my life.
Portland.
Okay.
So if he loses his matchup in that game against who he's playing against, that is
Donovan
when
Clingan?
I am not ready. I do not want to be
Off
on
the bench, Donovan Clingan.
I really don't want to be on Twitter that night, but I have to be because it's my job.
That's your job, yeah.
So, yeah, Donovan Clingan, right? Yeah, that's the matchup. All right, there it is. No, man, it's Robert Williams, the Time Lord himself.
Oh.
But yeah, it's all right, everyone. We'll cross that bridge when we have to get there. Not when we have to get there, but when
We want to enjoy good basketball.
when
right
we
now.
think it's there, and we're just not ready to go like so heavy into not reactionary, but just to your point, like doom and gloom kind of stuff. Where like this is the reason why the Suns won't win a championship. It's like it's been 4 games and they've mostly been pretty good. So
I'm going back to the start of this podcast as as a story arc should, and say I'm appreciating that I don't want to gouge my eyes out most of the time when I watch the basketball team that we watch for our jobs, which I can't say I didn't feel that way last season. I did a little bit.
I hope everyone listening to is in the same boat.
Enjoy life a little bit. Enjoy your basketball watching.
Yeah, tater tots, pretzel twists, all that stuff. You know the vibe. You got anything else, man?
No.
Nerd slushy? No. All right, we'll see you next week, everyone. Goodbye. They do burgers too.